Welcome to the Simply Pediatrics Podcast, simplifying holistic healthcare for infants and children. We're so glad you're here. Join Jennie Zethner, holistic pediatric nurse practitioner and holistic mom of 3 on a mission. Listen in as she shares the answers to the most asked questions from parents in her practice every day and offers parents practical strategies and actionable steps to support their child's health and well-being. Enjoy this insightful episode of the Simply Pediatrics Podcast and stay tuned for more information at the end of the podcast.
Hi, I'm Jennie Zethner. That's right, I'm here in my car. I don't know about the rest of you, but I find sitting in my car to be very peaceful. It happens to be one of the quietest places I have in my life. I have 3 children. I work full time. I'm busy like the rest of you, and I really would like to share information, and doing it from my car is most convenient. So I'm going to ask you to please forgive if there's any commotion behind me, any beeping, any dogs barking, ambulances, fire trucks, etc. I'll do the best I can to find quiet places. I assure you I will never be driving my vehicle when I speak to you. I will always be pulled over and parked. I am typically parked waiting for one of my children to come out of an event or something. So that is what I'm doing with my time here. And I look forward to sharing information with you. And again, forgive me for being a little unprofessional being here in my car, but I hope it works. And with that, let's get started.
Today's episode, milk.
Hi everyone and welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you today to talk about one of my favorite topics, milk. I have a lot to say about dairy in general, but today I'm talking specifically just about milk. The United States seems to be obsessed with giving our children milk. And once they've weaned from the breast or the formula, we do not actually need to go over to any kind of milk, particularly to cow's milk. This is a big topic in my office, especially as my little ones turn 1-year-old. A big difference that you'll hear in my office and not in a conventional office is that I do not recommend any milks at all after they've weaned from the breast, which might be over the 12-month mark, or once they've reached 12 months and they're on formula. So if you've been formula feeding your baby and you reach 1, traditionally and conventionally across the United States, all babies are put on whole milk, right? If you're a vegetarian, perhaps you're doing pea milk or soy milk, or I'm not sure. If you're breastfeeding and you are weaning from the breast, many moms will then go over to regular milk also. I do not recommend any milks whatsoever. Get to the 12-month mark, wean from the breast. Don't wean from the breast, stay on the breast if you'd like. But if you are on formula and you're transitioning, just transition off of the formula, even if that takes you a little bit longer after that 12-month mark there. But I do not go over to milk, especially for these babies, and there's so many of them, our babies who have cow's milk protein sensitivity. I can't tell you how many families I meet who were told by their pediatrician early on that their baby has a cow's milk protein sensitivity, or CMPA, cow's milk protein allergy. And they put the baby on special formulas that don't have any cow's milk protein, which by the way is casein, not lactose. Lactose is the sugar found in milk, and casein is the protein. That's the culprit. The lactose is an issue for our older people. For our children, it's the protein, it's the casein. So they'll be told by their provider that their child has a cow's milk protein sensitivity. They'll put them on all these very expensive, totally disgusting, I'm not going to name the brands, formulas so that their babies can grow. Okay, all good. So we do that. And then they turn 1, and then they say, now go give your baby milk. And then what happens, right? Are they all better? No, they're not all better. So inevitably, within, I'd say 3 to 6 months, I'll get a report from families that they, after starting the whole milk, families don't always put this together. I often am able to kind of connect that for them. They start having classically congestion, mucus, ear infections, eczema, allergies, runny nose, skin issues, digestive issues, constipation, on and on. It really essentially just produces inflammation, which comes out as mucus in our body in a variety of different ways. And hopefully I get to see these families before their children have been on multiple courses of antibiotics, which is super common. So know this, okay? So hopefully if you're listening to this, you're going to avoid this pitfall that we see often. If your child has a cow's milk protein sensitivity, do not go over to cow's milk ever, really. And then even if your child didn't have a cow's milk protein sensitivity, say they were on formula or you were breastfeeding, you were eating dairy the whole time, and then at 1 year old, you're going over to that cow's milk because that's quote unquote, that's what we do here in the United States. By the way, I mean, I have tons of information. I'll talk more about, dairy, but really it's strongly driven by the dairy industry. And we actually all don't need to be consuming that much milk. That is not true that we need to be consuming milk to grow like our bones and our teeth. I'll try to put an article at the bottom of this to connect that for you. But, that's another question I'll be met by families that, well, if they don't have milk, how are they getting their calcium? How are they building their bones? We don't just build bones from just one mineral, just from calcium. We need a whole variety of nutrients to build our bodies. So it's not just that. And, there's many, many other cultures in the world that do not go over to milk. So as a human species, we did not start drinking the milk from cows for quite a long time. And when we did start drinking the milk from cows, that is when many of our illnesses began. So if we look back in history, that is what you do see. There's a great book that covers it, and I'll include that in the bottom of this podcast, okay? So cow's milk is for baby cows, right? It's not for humans. Almond milk, I don't know who that's for exactly. Soy milk, I don't know who all those milks are for. If you want to cook with the milks, if you want to add milks into things and your kids don't have sensitivities, that's fine. But they do not need to be on a milk beverage. They need food. So once we reach 1 year old, the main source of our nutrition needs to be food. Food is medicine. Food is a celebration, but it is also medicine. And so that is what builds our bodies. And hopefully by the time your child has reached a year, you've expanded their palate. They're eating a little bit of, soft food, purees and pieces, depending on how many teeth they have in their mouth by the time they're 1. Many children don't have all their teeth by then. And so we're doing a mix of both to kind of keep them filled. And by 1 year old, you're giving multiple meals. And that kind of takes the place of the milk. If you've started winding down the formula because they're eating more foods, by the time you reach 12 months, you should really not be on that much more formula any longer. And it's just a real kind of easy process to get the milk out, because the more food they eat, the more, nutrient dense foods like proteins, meats, beans, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, the more seafood, seaweeds, the more whole foods we eat, the less milk that they'll need. So, and, classically I hear from families that their child won't eat. Yeah. And then when I ask how much milk they have, it's upward from like 30 to 36 ounces a day. It's so very simply, they're filled up on the milk. And many times these children, by the way, are anemic because their body's just filled up on this milk and they're not getting any of the other nutrients that they need. So the cow's milk can fill up their body. They also can be a little addicted to it. The protein that's in milk is called casein, like I said, and it breaks down to something called a beta-casomorphine, which is like an opioid-like substance. So that whole old-fashioned have a glass of milk, it makes you sleepy, it is true. And for many children, it kind of glazes them over, in fact, and they become addicted to it. Like their body really wants it. So I'll hear from families that I can't get them to stop drinking the milk. That's all they want. And so we have to wean that back by pulling the milk back and bringing in the foods. All right. So even for the children that don't have a cow's milk protein sensitivity, early on in life, I'll often hear from families that when they started them on the milk, shortly thereafter, the children were constipated, very closely linked. Cow's milk is very closely linked to constipation. It's also very closely linked to eczema, asthma, runny nose, and ear infections. And when, in fact, the family stops the milk, these symptoms do resolve. It's pretty magical. When they've been from provider to provider and on lots of medications, and then they hear me tell them to stop giving their child milk, and by the way, often that's all dairy, but today we're just really focusing on the milk, but their children get better. And I'm met with such skepticism because as a society, we're so attached to our milk, so attached to it, And even the families that are like, well, I'm doing raw milk and I'm doing, organic milk. And there's so many levels there, right? So the regular milk off the shelf is loaded with pesticides and antibiotics and hormones, and the chocolate milks are laden with all sorts of other chemicals. And then if you buy organic milk, okay, so now these cows haven't been given pesticides and haven't been given antibiotics, and hopefully they're not eating corn, so then I guess the milk is technically better, but it still causes inflammation. Okay, so it still has the casein that causes the inflammation in our bodies. And then another level of families that I see that tell me, we're getting raw milk. And so the raw milk, hasn't been homogenized and hasn't been pasteurized. And is that healthier? Not necessarily. It still has the casein. It still has the protein in there. And then a whole other level of parents will say, well, we're getting A2 milk, right? So A2 milk comes from special cows. And there's A1 and there's A2, and that's real specific about the casein. There can be A2 casein or A1, and the A1 is in most of our dairy, and that is very inflammatory. And A2 is not quite as inflammatory. A2 casein is also found in goat and in sheep milk, sheep dairy products and goat dairy products. And it is easier to digest, and certainly if I have a family that's just like real attached to their milk and they want to get the A2, it's certainly a better option. I still don't recommend it as a beverage. I just don't think we need to be feeding our children beverages of any kind of milk products. If you want to choose a dairy product that's an A2 and organic, then that's certainly a better option for your body in general. But to drink it as a beverage, nope. You know what we should be drinking? Water. Get your child's palate acclimated to water as soon as you can. Really, water is recommended shortly after they start eating foods to keep them hydrated and get them acclimated to it so that they know. Most of our body is made of water. That's what we need to be drinking. Okay, that is it for me today. I will have more to say about dairy in general. I think I just kind of wanted to get that milk comment out there to all of you families that are approaching that 12-month mark, okay? Remember that parenting is a journey and you're doing an amazing job. Stay curious and keep learning, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining Jennie on the Simply Pediatrics podcast. We hope that the valuable information she shared in this episode will inspire and empower you on your holistic parenting journey. If you would like to learn more about Jennie, her Simply Pediatrics practice, or anything that she spoke about today, please check the show notes that accompany this podcast, and you'll find all the links and resources you need. You can also sign up for the Simply Pediatrics mailing list so that you receive Jennie's weekly newsletters packed with vital information and holistic parenting gems. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider giving this page a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any episodes. And don't forget to connect with us by sharing your thoughts in the comments section below. Follow Simply Pediatrics on any and all of the social media platforms. And if you're interested in an in-person or a virtual appointment with Jennie, please see the contact details in the show notes. Stay tuned for more episodes packed with a wealth of powerful information to support you on your holistic parenting path. See you next time.